evening, I'm Steve Pereira and welcome to Quedia on Ben TV. Quedia is a show where we explore all things media. We are a very, very eclectic program, but we always have very electric results. Jennifer Granger has written a book, Femininity Lost, Why Most Women Are Male. An interesting book, an interesting take on gender and gender identity at a time when gender issues are very much the topic du jour. Witness our own Ben TV transmission, which is going to screen later on this year. Welcome, Jennifer. Welcome to Ben TV.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Why the book? Why now?
Well, the book took a long time to come together. It was a work of 10 years of my observations in my practice, in my coaching practice. And I just kept getting women into the practice and noticing that they were becoming more and more male as the years went by.
Male and how so?
Well, the more demanding their jobs got, the more demanding their lives got in general, the more their masculine side of themselves was becoming more evident and their feminine side was really receding into the background.
And this is a problem, why?
Well, it affects all of us, and if that's the case, men and women are inextricably linked. So if women are heightening their masculine, then the obvious seesaw effect would be that men are driven more definitely into their feminine side.
But again, I guess from our question, particularly from a gay and lesbian perspective, where gender is such a fluid construct,
yes,
the notion that one has to be one or the other, or that one takes precedence over the other, could seem a bit outdated.
I think that, heterosexual people probably don't have that feeling about gender. I think there's still the feeling that if you're a woman, you're feminine, if you're a man, you're masculine. That is outdated in my world. I don't see us looking like that, because I think over the last 50 years, things have changed. We are not the same people. Once the feminist movement came into being, which we have to bless them, they not only released women, but they released men. Men no longer had to find and play out that stereotypical way of being a man. They could be who they wanted to be, just as women could be who they wanted to be. But I don't think that we've actually caught up with that.
Right.
Yes, I think we've changed and we're actually living something different, but we put the old blueprint over our lives, and that causes us a lot of unhappiness.
So is your issue an issue of balance? Because you started by saying that we're all both genders, we both have masculine and feminine traits in us. But you're saying at some point of time, either women become over-masculinized or men become over-feminized, and that becomes an issue.
It does.
I guess the question would be, when's too much? How do you determine when is a man too feminine and when is a woman too masculine?
Well, I think a man becomes too feminine in a heterosexual sense when the woman is carrying everything. And that is what these women were saying to me. I'm exhausted, I'm fatigued, I'm overcommitted, I'm overburdened. I have a house husband, he's very good with the children, but I'm responsible for everything else.
So would it be correct to say a central premise would be you're saying that men are using the notion of gender equality as a cop-out from taking responsibility for what they should be doing? Well,
I think that it's a certain type of man. Let's be very careful not to generalize. I think my observations is that it's a certain type of man who sees the competence of these masculine-oriented women as pretty good. Well, if she can do it, then I don't need to. And I think that man always existed. He just didn't get away with it when we were stereotyped.
One of the articles you wrote was about, and you used, I'm not sure if it's a real life couple or not, but John and Alana, both high-priced lawyers, both very successful, and then Alana becomes super successful and her career takes off, leaving John perhaps a little bit behind in the career stakes. They then decide to have a family. John then stays home and looks after the family, but Alana then feels a sense of loss because she's lost that sense of mothering and motherhood, which I gather is an essential feminist characteristic. And then the relationship implodes because the balance is out. Exactly.
I think in that particular story, and I've seen that story over and over and over again, is that Alana was missing her feminine self. So, when women were released to their masculine selves, go out to work, be who you want to be, which is absolutely right. But they still need to feel that feminine part of themselves. Otherwise, you do feel the imbalance, and it is very obvious. You can feel it.
I guess again, it comes to the question for me is, when do you decide this? You've got crossed the threshold into.
Well, again, Steve, I think, you know, as I said in the book, the masculinity of women is not a one-size-fits-all, just as the femininity of men is not a one-size-fits-all. There are certain types, and we evolve into certain types. Like, so we have the good doer in the book. This is a woman whose masculinity is very high, you know, because your masculinity is the part of you that goes out into the real world. It's the doing side. And her side, that side of her is very, very high. She does non-stop for everybody. Now, the problem with her is, if she keeps going down that road without the connection of her feminine, that woman I've seen become quite ill. She actually can run herself into the ground. So she overrides her body, she overrides, and she loves her nurturing side. That's why she actually does so much.
When we were chatting earlier before, we talked about the nature of nurture versus nature, and the idea that gender types and people's, how they play out the gender stereotypes. The question is it a biological imperative? Are they forced to do this? Or is it a social imperative? So in Ilana's case, for instance, when she feels a loss of feminization because John's taken the nurturing, mothering role in the family, she feels a loss of personality. Now, is it because she thinks society thinks less of her, or is it something that's innate in her?
I think Ilana could have been a victim of society,
right.
of societal expectations on her. She might have gone to, you know, a very strident girls' school who said, you know, as women, you'll do this, you'll go this. And I've met a lot of women like that. They are groomed from school to be very, very successful. They go into the world. They are actually very bright. They are successful. And then they get to 40. 40 is like the magical age, between 38, 42.
So is 40 the new 30?
I think so. Yes. It's like they get to that age and they think, I don't even know if this is what I want. I don't know if I'm living the life I wanted. So then they start to question. And very often they find they're living the life that somebody else told them they should have. Often it's a parent. I met a woman the other day who was a beautiful barrister. She's a wonderful woman, a very, very successful barrister. She got to 40, she had 3 children, her husband's extremely successful, and she said, what now? I just don't want to do this. I can't go another step. I don't want to do this. This is not the life I want.
Thank you. And been on Quedia with Steve Pereira, and we've had with us Jennifer Granger with Femininity Lost, Why Most Women Are Male, but equally why most men are women. Thank you very much for being with us. Stay tuned for our very own show on gender issues, our 13-part series transmission, which airs later on this season. Thank you very much. We'll be back shortly.